You know what? I should have seen it coming. Really, I should have. After 300 cycles of diplomatic service across 47 star systems, you'd think I'd learned to spot the warning signs. But humans, oh, humans are special. They don't just break your expectations, they take them out back, shoot them twice, bury them in unmarked graves, then dance on the dirt while singing off-key victory songs. My name is Kareth Vel, Senior Arbitrator for the Galactic Trade Consortium, and I'm about to tell you how one human female made me question everything I thought I knew about intelligent life in this galaxy. Her name was Maya Torres, and by the time we were done with her, every species in known space would know that name too. It started 3 rotations ago in the most boring way possible. Paperwork. Mountains, the kind that makes you question your life choices and wonder if becoming a waste disposal engineer might have been the smarter career path. The Terran integration protocols required exactly 4,732 separate documents to be filed, reviewed, cross-referenced and approved before humanity could join our little galactic family. Standard procedure, my assistant Quellen assured me, his 6 arms shuffling through datapads with practiced efficiency. Every species goes through this. The Voltani took 8 cycles. The Hexarch Commonwealth took 12. These humans should be done in, maybe 15 cycles. 20 at most. I nodded, sipping my morning stimulant and watching the orbital traffic outside my office viewport. Ships coming and going, carrying goods and passengers across light years like it was nothing special. Just another day in the bureaucratic paradise of Nexus Station. That's when she walked in. Maya Torres stood exactly 5 feet, 6 inches tall according to her file, which meant absolutely nothing to me since humans insist on using their primitive measurement systems. What did matter was the way she moved. Confident but not cocky. Alert but not paranoid. And those eyes, humans have the strangest eyes. This ones were dark brown, almost black, and they seemed to catalog everything in the room within the first 3 seconds. Arbitrator Kareth Vel. Her voice carried that particular human accent they call American, though I never understood why they named it after a continent. I'm Maya Torres, representing Earth in these proceedings. I gestured to the guest chair with one of my 4 arms. Welcome, Representative Torres. I trust your journey was comfortable. She sat down, and here's where things got interesting. Most species, when they first visit Nexus Station, spend at least a few minutes gawking. The architecture, the artificial gravity systems, the mix of atmospheric zones. It's a lot to process. Maya glanced around once, nodded like she was checking off items on a mental list, then focused entirely on me. The journey was fine, thank you. Now about this integration process. I have reviewed the documentation, and I have some questions. Quellen's main eye stalk swiveled toward her. Questions? But we haven't even begun the orientation briefing yet. Maya pulled out a small device, human-made by the look of it, and activated a holographic display. My office suddenly filled with floating text, charts, and what appeared to be a 3-dimensional model of the entire integration process. Question 1, she said, highlighting a section of trade law with a gesture. Subsection 47 of the Economic Integration Protocols states that new member species must provide detailed resource inventories within 1 standard cycle. However, subsection 92 of the same document says this information can be withheld for security purposes indefinitely, which takes precedence. I blinked all 4 eyes. That contradiction had been in the documents for over 200 cycles. Most species never noticed it, and the few that did usually just asked for clarification through proper channels, which took another 10 to 15 cycles to resolve. Well, that's... Traditionally, we handle such matters through the Administrative Appeals Board, which meets every 6 cycles to... Question 2. Maya highlighted another section. The Cultural Preservation Accords require new species to document their significant historical conflicts for archive purposes. The definition of significant uses a mathematical formula based on population percentage, duration, and technological advancement. According to this formula, exactly 93% of human conflicts qualify as significant. The documentation requirements would take approximately 450 years to complete at current staffing levels. Quellen's arms stopped shuffling papers. 450 years, give or take a decade, Maya said with what humans call a smile. It didn't look particularly friendly. Question 3. The biological safety protocols require genetic sampling of all member species for disease prevention. The forms specify that these samples must be taken from healthy adult specimens of each distinct subspecies. Humans have over 7 billion individuals across 6 inhabited continents with genetic variations that would technically qualify as subspecies under your definition. Are you planning to test all of them? I felt a headache building behind my secondary brain. Representative Torres, these procedures have been in place. Question 4. The technological integration requirements mandate that new species demonstrate their capabilities by providing working examples of their 5 most advanced technologies. However, the disclosure restrictions in Section 12 mean we can't actually show you how they work without violating our own security protocols. This creates what you might call a logical impossibility. She was enjoying this. I could tell because that not quite friendly smile had gotten wider. Question 5. The military cooperation accords require new member species to provide complete organizational charts of their defense forces. Earth has over 195 separate political entities, each with their own military structure. Some of these entities are currently in active conflict with each other. Are you expecting them to share classified information about their own allies' military capabilities? Clellan was making a sound I'd never heard before, like air escaping from a punctured atmospheric seal. This isn't how these meetings usually go. Maya leaned back in her chair. Oh, I'm just getting started. Question 6. Wait. I held up a hand. Representative Torres, I appreciate your thoroughness. But perhaps we should start with the standard orientation procedures. There's a lot of background information that might help clarify some of these apparent contradictions. Apparent contradictions. Maya's eyebrows rose. Humans do this thing where they move hair above their eyes to express emotion. It's oddly effective. Arbitrator. With respect, these aren't apparent contradictions. They are genuine, fundamental flaws in your integration process that would make it literally impossible for any species to actually complete the requirements as written. That's not, every other species has managed to, have they? Maya activated another display. The Voltani submitted incomplete resource inventories and were granted exceptions on 67 different requirements. The Hexarch Commonwealth was allowed to classify 80% of their military information and received waivers for all biological sampling. The Treloth Federation negotiated alternative compliance measures for 91 separate protocols. She gestured, and the holographic display zoomed out to show what looked like a family tree, but instead of genetic relationships, it mapped every single exception, waiver and alternative measure granted to every species that had joined the consortium in the last 500 cycles. What you call standard procedure is actually a complex case-by-case negotiation system disguised as bureaucratic compliance. Every species gets a different deal based on their particular capabilities, limitations, and political leverage. The documentation requirements are deliberately impossible to meet, forcing new members to negotiate from a position of apparent non-compliance. Quillen's eye stalks were now pointing in 6 different directions. Where did you get this information? Maya's smile became genuinely friendly for the first time. Question 7. The information access protocols guarantee that all member species representatives have the right to review any documentation related to their integration process. This includes precedent cases, alternative compliance measures, and appeals procedures. All of this information is technically public. We just don't advertise that fact. I sat back in my chair feeling like I'd just been run over by a cargo hauler. Representative Torres, in 300 cycles of diplomatic service, I have never had a species conduct this level of analysis before even beginning formal integration procedures. Really? Maya looked genuinely surprised. How do they usually handle it? They usually just submit the initial paperwork and trust that we will work out the details as we go along. Huh? Maya considered this. That seems inefficient. Inefficient. She called our entire diplomatic system inefficient. And the worst part? She was absolutely right. So, Maya continued, I propose we skip the pretense and move directly to the actual negotiation phase. I have prepared a preliminary framework that addresses the real requirements for human integration, while acknowledging the practical limitations of your existing systems. Another holographic display materialized, this one showing what looked like a streamlined version of the integration process with about 70% fewer steps and none of the contradictory requirements. This is. I stared at the display. This is actually workable. It's based on the successful elements from previous integrations, minus the parts that don't make sense for a species with our particular characteristics. Quellen finally found his voice. What particular characteristics? Maya's expression grew thoughtful. Well, we are persistent. We don't like being told something can't be done without a very good explanation of why not. We have a strong tendency to optimize systems that seem inefficient. And we really don't like paperwork. Most species don't like paperwork, I pointed out. Yes, but most species don't have a choice about whether to do it or not. We do. There was something in her tone that made my translator implant work overtime trying to capture the nuance. What do you mean you have a choice? Maya stood up and walked to the viewport, looking out at the orbital traffic. Arbitrator Korith Vel, may I ask you something? Of course. How many species have ever declined to join the Galactic Trade Consortium? I thought about it. None. I mean, why would they? Membership provides access to advanced technology, interstellar trade routes, mutual defense agreements, protection from the Raider clans, access to the Galactic Communication Network, standardized currency systems, diplomatic immunity. Maya continued the list. Yes, I have read about the benefits. They are impressive. Then what's the problem? Maya turned back to face me. The problem, arbitrator, is that you are assuming we need those benefits badly enough to accept whatever terms you offer. The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. I don't understand. Earth has been intercepting and analyzing galactic communications for the past 12 years. We know about the Raider clans, we know about the trade routes, we know about the technology exchanges, and the mutual defense treaties. Maya returned to her chair. We also know about the membership requirements, the compliance costs, and the, shall we say, cultural adjustments that member species typically make after integration. Quellen was now making that punctured seal sound continuously. You have been monitoring our communications? That's a violation of the Interstellar Communication Privacy Accords, Maya finished. Section 15, subsection 3, except that those accords only apply to member species of the consortium. Earth isn't a member yet. She had a point. A terrifying, legally accurate point. Representative Torres, I said carefully, are you suggesting that Earth might choose not to join the consortium? I'm suggesting that Earth has options. We have had 12 years to prepare for this moment. 12 years to study your technology, your politics, your economics. 12 years to develop alternatives. What kind of alternatives? Maya activated another display. This one showed star charts, but not like any I'd seen before. These included systems that weren't on our official maps, trade routes that bypassed consortium space entirely, and what appeared to be diplomatic contacts with non-member species. For the past 8 years, Earth has been conducting independent diplomatic relations with 17 different species outside consortium space. We have established trade agreements, technology exchanges, and mutual assistance pacts. We have built our own interstellar communication network. We have developed our own faster-than-light travel technology. The room was completely silent except for Quellen's distressed breathing. We don't need to join the consortium, Maya continued. We want to. There are advantages membership that our independent network can't provide, but we are not desperate. We are not vulnerable. We are not coming to you as supplicants begging for protection and advancement. She leaned forward and her eyes held that calculating look again. We are coming to you as equals, offering to join a system that we believe could benefit from human participation, but only if the terms of that participation make sense for both sides. I felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, and if they don't— Maya's smile returned, but this time it held something that made my survival instincts start screaming. Then we continue building our own network. Maybe in a few hundred years, when you are ready to negotiate as equals, we can try again. You are bluffing, Quellen whispered. You have to be. No single species could develop all of that in just 12 years. Maya stood up. Quellen, isn't it? I like you. You remind me of my nephew back home. Always thinks he knows more than he actually does. She walked to the viewport again. See that ship in Docking Bay 7? The sleek one that doesn't match any known design in your databases? We both looked. There was indeed a ship there, elegant and purposeful in a way that made our own vessels look clunky by comparison. That's the UES Discovery. It made the trip from Earth to Nexus Station in 4 days. According to your records, that same journey takes the fastest consortium ships 11 days. That's impossible, I breathed. We will see. Discovery's crew has been monitoring this conversation through quantum entanglement communication. If I don't send an all-clear signal within the next 6 minutes, they will return to Earth and inform the Colonial Assembly that the consortium isn't ready for serious negotiations. Maya checked a device on her wrist. 5 minutes and 30 seconds now. This is extortion, Quellen said. This is negotiation, Maya corrected. I have identified the problems with your current system, proposed solutions that benefit both parties, and established a deadline for decision-making. That's exactly what any competent negotiator would do. But the implication, if other species learn that the integration process can be streamlined, they will demand better terms for themselves. Yes, probably. Arbitrator, I have to ask, is that necessarily a bad thing? I stared at her. 300 cycles of diplomatic experience, and I'd never been asked that question before. What exactly are you proposing, Representative Torres? Maya walked back to her chair, but didn't sit down. Simple. We negotiate a real integration agreement, not the impossible requirements followed by exceptions system you have been using, but an actual, practical framework that acknowledges what humans can and will provide to the consortium and what we need in return. And if we agree to this streamlined process, then Earth joins the consortium as a full member with all the rights and responsibilities that entails. We share our technological advances, contribute to mutual defense, participate in trade networks, and generally become productive galactic citizens. And if we don't, Maya checked her wrist device again. 4 minutes. If we don't reach an agreement, I return to Earth, we continue developing our independent network, and this whole conversation never happened. No harm, no foul, no diplomatic incidents. But the precedent will be that the consortium is willing to negotiate honestly with species that come to the table prepared. Is that really such a terrible precedent to set? I looked at Quellen, who was now hyperventilating through 3 of his 4 breathing apertures. I looked at the displays showing Maya's analysis of our systems, her proposed solutions, her evidence of Earth's independent capabilities. I looked out at the ship in Docking Bay 7, sleek and powerful and absolutely not supposed to exist. 3 minutes, Maya said quietly. If we agree to negotiate, I said, what assurance do we have that Earth will honor any agreement we reach? The same assurance you have with any other member species. Our word, backed by mutual interest and the practical benefits of cooperation. Maya paused. Plus, of course, the fact that we have already demonstrated we don't need the consortium badly enough to accept unfavorable terms. That's actually a stronger assurance than most species can provide. I thought you might see it that way. I made the decision that would change everything. Very well, Representative Torres. Let's negotiate. Maya smiled, and this time it was genuinely warm. Excellent. I think this is going to be the beginning of a very productive relationship. She activated her wrist device and spoke into it. Discovery. This is Torres. Stand down alert status. We are moving to formal negotiations. A voice responded in that crisp human accent. Acknowledged. Representative. Congratulations. Maya turned back to us. Now shall we start with trade agreements? I have some ideas about efficiency improvements that I think you will find very interesting. As she began outlining her proposals, I couldn't help but think that this was either the beginning of the consortium's greatest expansion or the moment we lost control of galactic politics forever. Probably both. But that was just the beginning, because 3 days later, when the negotiations should have been wrapping up with a standard integration treaty, Maya Torres did something that no one had ever done before in the history of galactic diplomacy. She rewrote the rules entirely. And that's when things got really interesting. The next 72 hours redefined by understanding of the word negotiation. Maya Torres didn't just propose changes to the integration process. She systematically reconstructed the entire framework of galactic diplomacy. One clause at a time, while maintaining the kind of cheerful professionalism that made you forget she was essentially performing surgery on centuries of established protocol. Coffee, she asked on the second day, offering me a steaming cup of some human beverage that smelled like burnt vegetation. It's a mild stimulant, helps with focus during long meetings. I accepted the cup, mostly because refusing seemed somehow dangerous. The taste was actually not terrible, bitter, but in a way that made my thoughts sharper. Now, Maya continued, settling back into her chair with her own cup, let's talk about the Defense Cooperation Accords. Specifically the part where new member species are required to contribute military assets to the consortium defense fleet. Quellen activated the relevant documents. Standard requirement. Every member species contributes according to their capabilities. Right. And what happens if a member species' capabilities exceed the current fleet standards? I paused mid-sip. I'm sorry, Maya smiled that particular smile again. The one that made me feel like I was missing something important. Hypothetically speaking, of course. What if a new member species had military technology that was significantly more advanced than what the consortium currently uses? Hasn't come up before, I admitted. Well, it's coming up now. Maya activated her own display, showing what appeared to be technical specifications for something called a gravitational displacement cannon. This is one of Earth's standard defensive systems. According to our analysis of consortium fleet capabilities, it's approximately 400% more effective than your current primary weapons. Quellen's main eye stalk rotated a full 360 degrees. 400%? Give or. The real question is, does Earth contribute ships equipped with inferior weapons to match consortium standards, or do we contribute our actual defensive capabilities and potentially unbalance the entire fleet structure? I set down my coffee cup before I dropped it. Representative Torres, are you saying that human military technology is superior to consortium standards? In some areas, yes. In others, no. We have had 12 years to analyze captured radar technology and develop countermeasures. Plus, we have had the advantage of starting fresh without having to maintain compatibility with legacy systems. She gestured, and the display showed a comparison chart. Human technology versus consortium standard versus known radar capabilities. The numbers were unsettling. The thing is, Maya continued, we don't particularly want to destabilize galactic military balance. That would be bad for everyone. But we also can't pretend our capabilities are less than they actually are. That would be dishonest, and it would make us less effective as allies. What do you propose? I asked, though I was beginning to suspect I wouldn't like the answer. Joint development programs. We share our advances, you share yours, and together we develop new standards that benefit everyone. It will take time, but it's the only way to maintain balance while actually improving overall defensive capabilities. That would require rewriting the entire defense cooperation framework. Yes, it would. The casual way she said it made my secondary brain ache. Representative Torres, you are talking about fundamental changes to systems that have maintained galactic stability for over 500 cycles. Have they? Maya's tone remained conversational, but her eyes had that calculating look again. Because from our analysis, galactic stability has been maintained through a combination of overwhelming consortium military superiority and the fact that most conflicts stay in the outer systems where they don't threaten core worlds. She activated another display. This one showing conflict statistics over the past 200 cycles. Radar activity has increased by 37% in the last 50 cycles. Piracy rates in non-consortium space have tripled, and there have been at least 12 instances of member species conducting undeclared military actions against non-member planets. Those were exceptional circumstances, Quellen protested. Were they the inevitable result of a system where military power is concentrated among established members while newer, weaker species are expected to contribute resources without gaining proportional influence? The room fell silent, except for the hum of the station's life support system. You are not just proposing to join the consortium, I said slowly. You are proposing to reform it. I'm proposing to improve it. There's a difference. Maya leaned forward. Arbitrator. The current system works reasonably well for the species that are already integrated and powerful enough to negotiate favorable terms. but it's increasingly unstable as more species develop independent municipalities outside consortium control. What do you mean? Maya activated yet another display. This one showed a map of known space that looked nothing like our official charts. 17 species currently operate outside consortium authority. 3 more are in active negotiations with non-member powers. At least 6 member species have been conducting independent diplomatic relations that directly contradict their consortium obligations. It's impossible. We would know, would you? When was the last time the consortium conducted a comprehensive review of member species' external activities? I thought about it. The answer was uncomfortable. The system is breaking down, Maya continued. Not catastrophically, not yet. But the cracks are showing. Species are finding ways around the restrictions that don't work for them. The outer systems are becoming increasingly lawless, and sooner or later someone is going to develop capabilities that make consortium military superiority irrelevant. Someone like Earth? We are not the only ones. Arbitrator. We are just the first to be honest about it. That statement hung in the air like a toxic cloud. How many others? Official count? I can't give you specifics without violating diplomatic confidentialities, but enough that the current balance of power is more fragile than your leadership realizes. I stood up and walked to the viewport, looking out at the ships in the docking bays. Vessels from dozens of species, all supposedly united under consortium authority. How many of them were hiding capabilities we didn't know about? How many were conducting negotiations we weren't aware of? What exactly are you proposing, Representative Torres? A new framework, one that acknowledges reality instead of pretending it doesn't exist. Member species contribute according to their actual capabilities and receive influence proportional to their contributions. Military technology development becomes collaborative instead of restrictive. Diplomatic relations become transparent instead of secret, and Earth's role in this new framework. Maya's smile returned. We become what we have always been. Problem solvers. We identify inefficiencies, develop solutions, and implement improvements. The difference is that now we do it as part of the consortium instead of independently. And if the consortium leadership rejects these proposals, then we continue developing our independent network. And in 50 cycles, when your current system collapses under its own contradictions, maybe the next leadership will be more interested in practical solutions. The worst part was that she was probably right. I'd been watching the system develop stress fractures for decades without really acknowledging what they meant. This is going to require approval from the full council, I said. I know. That's why I prepared this. Maya activated the largest display yet. It showed a complete reformation of the consortium charter, written with the kind of legal precision that suggested she'd been working on it for years. This is the proposed framework, with full implementation timeline, transition procedures, and safeguards to prevent disruption during the changeover period. Every current member species maintains their existing rights and privileges while gaining new opportunities for advancement based on merit rather than seniority. I scanned through the document. It was actually brilliant. It addressed every concern I could think of while providing genuine improvements to efficiency and fairness. How long did this take you to prepare? The basic framework? About 6 years. The detailed implementation plan. Another 2. The legal review and compatibility analysis. The final 6 months. You have been planning this since before you even contacted us for integration talks. We have been planning for multiple scenarios. This is just the one we prefer. Quellen finally found his voice. This is just the one we prefer. Quellen finally found his voice. This is the most comprehensive reform proposal in consortium history. Thank you. I wasn't sure it was a compliment. Maya laughed, a sound that somehow managed to be both friendly and slightly predatory. It wasn't meant to be. It was meant to be accurate. I returned to my desk and activated the emergency council communication system. I need to brief the leadership on these proposals immediately. Of course. How long will that take? Emergency sessions usually convene within 6 hours. Full debate and voting could take days. Maya checked her wrist device. I can give you 72 hours. After that, Earth's Colonial Assembly needs to know whether we are proceeding with consortium integration or independent development. 72 hours to reform the entire galactic political system. 72 hours to decide whether you want to reform it proactively or let it collapse reactively. The council session that followed was unlike anything in consortium history. 12 species representatives, each more confused and alarmed than the last, as I explained how a single human negotiator had hence to demonstrate that our entire governmental structure was an elaborate house of cards. Chancellor Vorthak of the hegemony was the first to speak. This is preposterous. One species cannot dictate terms to the entire consortium. They are not dictating, I replied carefully. They are offering, with a deadline. The same thing. Is it though? Council member Zalara of the Aquatic Federation leaned forward in her environmental suit. Because if what arbitrator Korath Vel says is accurate, this human proposal would actually benefit most member species. By destabilizing everything we have built, by acknowledging that what we have built isn't as stable as we thought, corrected Representative Thane of the Silicon Collective. I have been reviewing the data Torres provided. Her analysis is uncomfortably accurate. You have all lost your minds, Vorthak growled. We cannot allow one species to hold the entire consortium hostage. They are not holding us hostage, I said. They are offering us a choice. We can adapt to changing circumstances, or we can pretend those circumstances don't exist until they force adaptation on us. And what makes you think these humans will honor any agreement they make? Because they have already demonstrated they don't need us badly enough to accept terms they consider unfavorable. That actually makes them more trustworthy, not less. The debate continued for 18 hours. Some council members were outraged at the presumption. Others were intrigued by the possibilities. A few were terrified by the implications of Earth's independent capabilities. Finally, Chancellor Vorthak played what he clearly thought was his winning card. Even if we accept this reformation, how do we know the humans won't simply demand more changes in the future? How do we know this isn't just the first step in a complete takeover? I activated the display showing Maya's proposed treaty language. Because of this, the final clause of the integration agreement was unlike anything in consortium legal history. Most treaties ended with standard enforcement and modification procedure. This one ended with a single paragraph that made every council member go silent. In recognition of the collaborative nature of this agreement and the precedent it establishes for future negotiation, all parties acknowledge that the framework herein described represents the maximum extent of systematic reform that Earth will propose to the Galactic Trade Consortium. Any future modifications to consortium structure must be initiated by member species other than Earth or supported by a minimum of 2/3 of total membership. This limitation is binding upon Earth and all Earth-affiliated entities in perpetuity, and violation of this clause constitutes automatic grounds for expulsion from the consortium without appeal. Maya Torres, as chief negotiator for Earth, personally guarantees this limitation and stakes her individual honor upon its maintenance. She wrote herself into the treaty, whispered Council Member Ethok of the Crystalline Assembly. She made it personal. Why? Asked Solara. I thought about my conversations with Maya over the past few days. Her careful analysis, her practical solutions, her obvious respect for what the consortium had accomplished despite its flaws. Because she wants us to trust her, I said. Not just as Earth's representative, but as an individual. She's saying that if we accept this proposal, she personally guarantees that Earth will never ask for anything like this again. And if she dies, if she's replaced, then Earth is still bound by the clause because it applies to all Earth-affiliated entities. But by putting her name on it, she's making it clear that this proposal comes from someone who understands the risk of instability and is willing to stake her personal reputation on maintaining balance. Chancellor Vorthak studied the clause again. This is actually quite clever and legally binding. It's more than that, said Representative Thane. It's a demonstration of good faith that no species has ever made before. She's voluntarily limiting Earth's future negotiating power to prove they are not seeking dominance. The final vote was closer than I'd hoped, but not as close as I'd feared. 7 species in favor, 4 opposed, 1 abstention. The reforms would proceed. I sent the results to Maya Torres with exactly 47 minutes remaining on her deadline. Her response was immediate. Excellent. When do we start implementation? 3 months later, the first reformed consortium council meeting convened with Earth as a full member. The improvements were already visible. Resource allocation was more efficient. Military cooperation was more effective. Diplomatic processes actually made sense, but the real change was subtler. Other species started approaching negotiations differently. They came prepared, they asked hard questions, they proposed solutions instead of just identifying problems. The Maya Torres standard, they started calling it not officially, but everyone knew what it meant. Come to the table ready to work, identify real issues, propose practical solutions, and be willing to stake something meaningful on the outcome. 6 months later, the Triloth Federation proposed comprehensive educational exchange reforms. 9 months later, the Voltani Collective introduced new trade efficiency protocols. A year later, the Hexarch Commonwealth suggested military technology sharing programs that made the old system look primitive. Each proposal followed the same pattern Maya had established: thorough analysis, practical solutions, personal guarantees from the negotiators. Maya Torres had reformed more than just Earth's integration. She'd reformed the entire culture of galactic diplomacy. So, I asked her during a routine trade review meeting, how does it feel to have fundamentally changed galactic civilization? Maya sipped her coffee, a beverage that had become surprisingly popular throughout the consortium since Earth's integration. Honestly, I'm just glad we don't have to fill out 4,000 separate forms anymore. She paused, considering, though I do sometimes wonder what would have happened if you'd called our bluff. Were you bluffing? Maya's smile was answer enough. The thing is, arbitrator, humans have a saying, if you are not at the table, you are on the menu. We could have built our own network. Sure, but this— She gestured around the council chambers, where representatives from 23 species were conducting business with an efficiency that would have been impossible under the old system. This is better. For everyone, including the species that initially opposed the reform, especially them. They just needed time to see the benefits. That was Maya Torres in a nutshell. Patient, practical, and absolutely convinced that most problems could be solved if you just took the time to understand them properly and convince everyone involved that the solution was in their best interests. Which is probably why, 2 years after the reforms were implemented, when the first signs of the Void Walker incursion appeared in the outer airs, every species in the consortium knew exactly who to call for a consultation. But that's another story entirely. As for Maya Torres herself, she continued serving as Earth's primary diplomatic representative until she retired to teach negotiation theory at the Galactic University. Her course, Practical Problem-Solving in Multi-Species Environments, has a waiting list of 3 years and students from every member species. The final clause bearing her name remains in the consortium charter, a permanent reminder that sometimes the best way to change everything is to voluntarily limit how much you are willing to change. They wrote her name in the treaty, and it became the final clause. But more than that, it became the foundation of a new way of thinking about cooperation, compromise, and the delicate balance between progress and stability. And every time a new species joins the consortium, their integration specialist shows them Maya's clause and explains what it means. That trust is earned by accepting limitations, that power is demonstrated by choosing not to use it, and that the best solutions are the ones where everyone wins something meaningful. Not bad for a human who just really didn't like paperwork.